Many myths and legends have been made about the beasts that terrorize the sky. I'm sure you were warned of such monsters when you were a child. But some beasts stand above the others as mighty beyond belief. The ones that stand above all are the dragons. Masters of the skies, harbingers of peace or destruction, the titans that stand above the world. But there are those who stand as titans among titans. The dragons that can be found at the world's highest peaks and most dangerous lands. I speak of the Bloodchasers, some of the mightiest dragons of all. Perhaps even the top of the food chain itself. These mighty beasts have all sorts of horror stories attached to them. Stories of burning down entire villages to torture the men and women and eat the children. They would cruelly play with their human victims for fun, an agent of chaos and destruction. In reality, they are not such destructive monsters that would torture and eat people. That would be a waste of its time for such small and pitiful meals like a human. No, they are proud creatures who only hunt the largest and tastiest monsters of the land, which they hunt with excellence, being the apex predators that they are. Most creatures, including other dragons, know to flee when they see a bloodchaser flying overhead, as they know they would have little chance to dethrone such behemoths of the sky. They are solitary creatures, who live in the most secluded places you can imagine, the prime real estate for all dragons, but they get the best picks out of all of them, as they scare away or even kill most other dragons who step into their domain. In fact, some clades of Bloodchasers are known to scare away other clades, viewing them as more competition. Some people still think Bloodchasers are responsible for storms, hurricanes, and tsunamis by flapping their wings and breathing fire to scare humans. This resulted in most people fearing them as destroyers of the world. This fear is not misplaced though, as they are right to fear them. Although they don't hunt humans, they burn, kill, and sometimes eat them if they incur on their territory, and human livestock is the perfect snack for a hungry dragon. They are classed as wyverns, being that they have one pair of wings and one pair of three-toed claws that act as feet. On the tip of their wings they have two large talons that can be used to stab with, and another row of spines on their wing joints that can be used to slash the other wings of dragons. On their head rests a short mane of horns that lead into two larger horns that can be used for ramming. 3 rows of spikes are along the back of its spine to protect it, and there are 2 smaller rows along its short neck to protect that as well. Their wings are short, retractable, and leathery, no doubt to stop other dragons from being able to slash them. Their colour patterns denote their clade, or family, though unlike some dragons, Bloodchasers are known to be able to change their colour for all sorts of reasons. Perhaps to seem more intimidating, or maybe to blend in with another clade to steal from them. But I know some clades do it during mating season, where the males take on all sorts of fancy and elaborate colours to attract a mate. They live in isolation for the most part, and given that each clade owns such large tracts of land, it can be months to years that each Bloodchaser spends in solitary, only really venturing out naturally when hunting in mating season or when another dragon or even clade enters their turf. But if something massive were to happen, such as a grand hunt to be called to eradicate the clade, they would band together, flying from nest to nest, to gather the whole clade to defend their lands. Speaking of which, Bloodchasers do have nests where they live in small families of sorts. During mating season, the females will make the large nests, and the males will try to impress them in some way, usually with a combination of their patterns and gifts presented to the female. If the female is to accept it, they will pick them as their mate. The 2 of them will have a small clutch of eggs, which the mother will care for as the father will go out to hunt for them. Once the hatchlings are ready to fly and leave, the couple will split up, returning to isolation, until the next mating season, where the same pair may or may not couple again, as being with the best partner is more important to them than loyalty. Taming a wild Bloodchaser is a nightmare, by the way, as their pride is ever showing, and they view humans as lesser beasts. If you truly want one, you should do as I did, and buy one, or even an egg, from a marauder, as they learn the secrets to doing so, but keep it to themselves. But keep in mind they might try to swindle you, so make sure you sound like you know what you're talking about. And if you must fight one, Keep in mind that they have multiple defenses for protecting their wings and back, so your best bet is finishing them with a stab to their softer underbelly. But good luck with that should you actually try to hunt one. Perhaps you would like to know of some Bloodchasers. The stranger ones, the unique and legendary ones, the ones with names and stories behind them, the ones that are the exceptions to the rules. Well, I know of a few, and truth be told, their stories are interesting. So I'll tell you of them, starting with the proudest of them all. Found flying high above the Fjalnar Basin, above the very cloud line for most of its time, is Warelm, the crest of the storm. He is more scaled than most his kind, and most of his are not only bigger, but stick out of his body. He also has a crest along the back of his neck, and 2 frills along his back, making him the only Bloodchaser with such details, as far as my knowledge anyway. He is said to control the very weather itself, and people sometimes provoke his name in order to anger him, so that he would make it rain. There is another that springs legends forth. Ul'Harak the Demanding is the villain of many tales, with a spike down his chin resembling a beard and a large row on his back, his 2 head horns curled around his head. Before the unification, there was once a great city named Hajek. This beast nested over it. In order to stop him from attacking, they would give him offerings, but it wanted more and more, and started demanding human sacrifices. This lasted until a noble refused to hand over his daughter. So the dragon burned the city down, destroying all of it, and wiping it from the map. Perhaps you want to hear of a savior instead. Then Fadir, the Beast Slayer, is one you want to hear of. Despite being covered in spikes around his body, and his 2 head horns instead being 6, this hides his more juvenile nature. A long time ago, an ancient monster came from the west, and could have destroyed this land in its wake. But Fadir, enraged that the people feared this monster more than him, slew it. However, people ended up celebrating their unwilling protector, but it works out well, as Fadir views the people of these parts as his property, and protects them like he would his own. Do you want to hear of a true monster? Something to fear like a beast? Then do not step into the westernmost parts of the Valkyrian range, as Kavar, the frozen Ire, has made that valley his home. With black stone-like spikes darting his body, and 2 massive ram-like front horns, he is a beast with no equal. Rage is the only emotion he feels, and anger is all he expresses. He is the reason that land has never been fully mapped, as he kills and eats anything that steps in his pristine, icy lands. Maybe you want to hear a tragedy, in which case you want to know of Gulnir, the Lone Splinter, looking more like a triceratops than a dragon, with massive scales covering the weaker parts of his body, making him naturally armored. Eons ago, he was part of the largest clade on the coast, but the local kingdoms had had enough of this clade, and desired to call a great hunt on them. Gulnir, being the biggest of his clade at the time, fought them valiantly, earning the moniker the Baron Splitter for a time, but his fighting was all in vain, as he is now the last of his kind, forever mourning and grieving his lost clade. He spends most of his time alone, in solitary, in a cave on the coast. Perhaps I shall tell you one with a happier ending. I shall teach you of the famed Bloodchaser that the Marauders ride, the prideful mount of the first Marauder Hrongard. I speak of Halistor, the Ever-Hunger, with jet-black scales and massive spiked rows on his back and head. He serves as the mount of Marauders he views as worthy to ride him. As the legend goes, Hrongard found him as a hatchling, after his clade cast him out for being too different. He was forced to survive on the discards of other beasts. Hrongard took him in and trained him. Over time he became a mighty beast, even outliving the clade that spawned him. A hunger awoke in him, and he feasted on all of his foes at the end of a battle, both rider and mount alike. But upon the death of his father figure Hrongard, the beast let out a scream that can be heard throughout the land. His was the only body he refused to eat. I think that's enough stories for now. Perhaps another if you buy me a drink. I will say, they are fascinating beasts, Bloodchasers. They are the kings of the sky, ever living in people's hearts and minds as the scary yet iconic apex predators of the land. It's hard not to love their prestige, as it oozes raw primordial power and emotion. You know, I have one actually, but my Bloodchaser is an absolute sweetheart. He would never hurt anyone intentionally, and acts more like an overgrown puppy dog than a dragon at times. But I must say, my boy's an exception, as he was the runt of his litter, and I've had him ever since he was a hatchling. It's a sweet little thing. But I think that's enough from me for now. Thank you for listening to my tales. I'm the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It will really mean a lot to me. But, till next we meet, fellow traveller, have a good day.